And we're good to go. All right, guys, we are back. Welcome back for another very special episode of the Ready, Set, Blow podcast with none other than my grandmother, Catherine Cookie Mead. Give it up for her. Chase is on the line as well, too. Chase put on his Sunday best, even though it's Tuesday. He has a lovely tie on. What'd you go with? Is that purple, Chase?
Don't do that. You know what this color is. This is salmon.
Salmon. All right.
So it's a salmon. Creamsicle.
I thought it was a burgundy, but salmon I'll go with. All right.
Yeah, I said to myself, I gotta dress. This is a big moment. I want to dress up. I want to pay respect. As you can see, Randy didn't dress up. He just woke up.
No, I dress like the same way I do every day. T-shirt and shorts. Although I bet you any amount of money Chase doesn't have pants on though. He just got the shirt and tie.
I'm dressed like a grandmother.
That's right. Nice to.
You look very handsome, Chase.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Randy, you didn't say that, so go. You can. I hate you for that.
and your tie is coordinated with your shirt.
Oh yes. I don't know if I should call you Cookie, if that's okay.
Cookie.
Everyone calls you Cookie.
Yeah.
How long did you call Cookie? Because I know David started that, right?
David.
So my cousin David started calling her that, I guess, as a child.
Yeah.
And what's the meaning behind the nickname? Cookie?
Well, they lived in Hawaii, and I used to speak to them regularly on a Saturday. So he was, I guess, about 18 months old, starting to talk. And gets on the phone, and he didn't know what to say. And all of a sudden, he goes, Cookie. And that's where it started.
It stuck?
And it stuck. After that, everybody called him Cookie.
Well, unfortunately, the way my cookie stuck with me wasn't the same way as yours. I've had a few cookies myself over the years, so it's fine.
Chase has been doing a good job about losing some weight, though. He's getting back in shape, just like Sally.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Yeah, Randy's been
a hard thing to do, and well worth the effort when you get done.
So now, obviously, I know it's inappropriate to ask a lady her age, but you're no spring chicken.
No.
So when were you born?
1931.
1931.
And all the kids would say, I'm 89 and a half.
89 and a half.
No, you were 10 I'm 10, but I'm going to be 10 and a half. 12 and a half.
1931, Randy.
I know. Well, the first question the first and obvious question is, what have you done to stay so robust into 90? What's your regimen?
Well, I walk. I belong, as you can see, to the Health and Fitness Center. It's on my shirt. So I exercise. I don't know. You stay happy. You have somebody that loves you all your life, and you have wonderful family and children, and try and eat well. Stay away from the chocolate.
I know you're always good about that. Pop, my grandfather Pop was always bad with the sweets and the candies and all that, but you're always pretty good about it.
Yeah, I try to be, but I love them. So that's my downfall.
Yeah, well, I know a lot. Trust me, I know.
So
I can appreciate that.
So 1931. Can you remember what your earliest memory was?
Well, one of the first things I remember was the small apartment my parents lived in, being hungry. That sounds weird, but I don't know. I must have been maybe like 2 or so, but I remember being hungry. I don't know why I remember that. And then,
well, this was the depths of depression. I imagine times were tough.
It was. So that's one of my earliest memories. But after that, you're poor sometimes. Like Pop used to say, you're poor, but you didn't realize that you had friends in the street, and, because grew up in Brooklyn, and you had your own group of friends. You had your family. Family was always very important. So we visit relatives, and had friends in the neighborhood, and you played, hopscotch, ran around. And as I was growing up, I told Randy and the rest of the family the other day, I didn't think boys were better than me back in that day. So I was the oldest of 4. And I said, I'm going to beat any boy. I'm going to run faster than they are. I'm going to play ball better than they did. And they did.
Oh, good.
At that time.
A woman ahead of her time. Now, how did you guys make it through the Depression? I mean, because you got the 31 was
hard.
right in
We
the
were
thick of it.
on.
What did your folks
my-
do for a living to get
Well,
by?
my father finally got a job with what was called the WPA, which was set up, I forget the exact words for it, but they took men, women weren't, I don't know, they might have been involved, but I was only realized with my father. And they sent these men out, they built parks.
Okay, like Public Works Department.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like a public works thing. And then we had to be supplemented. So we were on what then was called home relief, which today would probably be welfare. And they would once a month give you a check to buy certain amounts of food. And I remember my mother sending me to what would be the bakery or the bread store. And I thought that as a child, I'd go in there and the loaf of bread I got was this big.
Well, it's bigger than you, I'm sure. But now you look back, it's probably a little,
And my mother always baked. So when we loved it if we had company, because they would bring a store-bought cake.
Okay.
Which was like, oh, that's special. Although my mother's baking was very good.
Now, was Pop Pfeiffer old enough to be in World War I, or you missed that?
No. My parents got married when my mother was 16 and my father was 17.
Okay.
And I was born within that year. And then they had my sister, my two sisters, and then my brother was 10 years younger than me. And things were getting better in their life. My father, we came across papers that he had been in it was so strange, in the Marine Reserve. They must have had some kind of thing that went on for men. And he was very proud of that. But he never was in the military. And he missed it during the Second World War because he had his fourth child. And they took the draft according to what children you had. The young guys all went in the Second World War. And then if you had one child, they started to take it. But by the time they got to him, he had 4 children, so they wouldn't accept him anymore.
Okay.
But he worked in a defense plant, so he was building airplanes.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
I know. Now, did you meet Pop? So for those listening, Pop's my grandfather recently passed. It's October of 19, right? 2019.
Right.
So you met him around the same age that your mother met your father, no?
Yes.
14, 15 years old?
Yeah, I was 16.
Okay.
We were both going to be 16.
Okay. And what was his move? I know the answer to this, but Chase, listen to this. So what was Pop's move to get Cookie?
He was on a street corner with 3 other boys, and they were playing cards. And I was coming up the street. Well, you live in the city, I guess, so you're used to blocks.
Yeah.
So I'm coming up the street with her, and as I pass, he says, "You got a match?" And I said, "No, but I'll bring one back later."
He asked her for a match for a cigarette. She said, "No, but I'll come back later and give you one."
Oh, wow. That's
fresh.
Okay.
Huh? The mouth on this one.
Yeah. I know where Randy gets it from now.
So I indeed brought it back later, came back with my girlfriend, brought it back later. And from that moment, we were a couple.
Oh, right away.
Yeah, as soon as I got up to her apartment, I said, that's the man that's the boy I'm going to marry.
Wow. Had you seen him around the neighborhood before, or was that the first?
No, I didn't know him. I lived on Long Island and he lived in Queens.
Oh.
Or Brooklyn. He was on the Queens-Brooklyn line. And he lived there, but I had family in Queens. And my girlfriend lived in Queens, so we used to come and go and see each other over weekends. And that's how it all started.
Yeah. But I know you guys, that's funny because I know you guys both were born in Brooklyn.
Yes.
But you, by the time you got to high school, you moved up to Long Island?
Right. My mother always wanted to make herself better. She always wanted to go up, better than what I had before.
Yeah.
And when my father started to work on the defense plant, it happened to be in Valley Stream, Long Island. And he used to have to get what they called riders. He had somebody that drove a car and then would pick up riders and charge them.
Like a little carpool or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And so then she started looking for to rent a house in Valley Stream, and she did. And her family was absolutely shocked because she raised her rent like double or triple what she was paying before. She says, but we're going to do it because this is going to be a better life than we had before.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And
I was.
My mother was the driving force in the family. She was the one that.
Nanny Mead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Nanny Pfeiffer.
Nanny Pfeiffer, sorry.
She says, we're going to be better than we were yesterday.
Okay.
That's great. I'm always interested in hearing stories of people from back then and how they like through generations of time of. So I guess my question would be, what would be your most like? Obviously, you've seen a lot more than probably me and Randy put together, right? I guess my question would be, which period of time that you really, really enjoyed? And what I mean by period of time, like I know like the 60s had their thing and the 70s had their vibe. Like which period of time that was very fun that you remember that you really enjoyed? Which generation of time?
I would probably say the 50s, 60s when Pop and I got married and we had our children and we bought our first home. And things just, what would you say, all clicked together. He worked 2 jobs. My mother scrubbed floors back in the Depression time to bring extra income in. And so we were kind of left alone, and I was always in charge of my siblings. And I used to get flack from neighbors, you shouldn't be doing this, and they'd be reporting to my mother. And so that kind of affected me. So when we got married and we're getting our first home, I had said to Pop, I want to be a mother at home. I didn't want to have to work. He says, if that's what you want, that's what we're going to do. So he worked 2 jobs, 7 days a week until a long period of time. But our daughters never were aware of it. So, because we worked it out, the first job, this day job that he had, he came home at 6 o'clock. I always had dinner ready, and then he played with them and put them to bed. So he went back to his other job around 7:30 or 8 o'clock. But it was a very happy time. We did a lot of fixing up of our home. There were things we wanted to change. And we were in I like the colonial era of period of time in history. So we had beam ceilings and things that related to that were very early American, I should say, not colonial, more early American, more rustic kind of thing.
What was it about Pop that you said when you first saw him, you knew that was the guy? What drew you to Pop? Was he? I mean, because all it is asking for a match. Was he funny when you talked to him? Was he kind to you?
No, he was very, very kind. He was always very kind, very caring. Like now, he had to travel an hour and a half to go date me. He'd have to take a train and a bus to get there. And when he used to come Friday nights was his night with the guys. Then Saturday he would come out after working because he'd work half a day on Saturday. And he'd come out then, and then he'd go home, and then he'd come back on Sunday, and then go home again. So finally, of course, as I said, we rented a home, and we had a closed porch. And the parents got together. Well, I have to tell you about the first winter. The first winter, 1947, there was like 38 inches of snow.
Oh, God.
So my father says, if he comes out on this Saturday, because it all happened at Christmas and it was over a weekend, he says, if he comes out, he says, it's really love. So he did. He showed up. He was late. He showed up. So after that, the parents got together and they say, because I met him in July, this is December, and the parents got together and say, hey, look, this is crazy. He goes home on Saturday, comes back again, money on the car fare, all this stuff. So they said he could stay over Saturday night, and he slept on the porch.
Okay.
Freezing. Really, honest to truth. He frozen in the summer, frozen in the winter.
But temperature never seemed to bother him. I mean, I remember he'd go golfing in the middle of winter. Crazy.
And he was just very caring, understanding, and like I was mentioning yesterday about today, the language is so different. Back then, when fellas and girls got together and, you were in a group, if the guy said one curse word, some other guy say, hey, guys, the girls are here. Okay. Cut that out.
Well, I remember Pop's sisters had mouths on them, Muriel and Lorraine. I guess it gets,
much later in life. Yeah, much later in life. They weren't like that when they were young because, like I said, I pretty much grew up with them.
Would you say, Randy, you think like the the time period now, you think chivalry with men has kind of dissipated versus back then?
Yeah, I think it has, and I'd love to get your perspective on that, Cook. If chivalry has changed, or is just the whole world moved in a different direction?
You know, it's strange when you say that because I'm older now, but there must be something that's there because when I go to stores and that, everybody, I mean, young men, older men, I notice it because that's the way they grew up. But the young men, they do it. They like open the door, let me pass, let me go ahead in the line. So you figure if they didn't have, that caringness or politeness, they wouldn't do it. So somewhere along the line that was given to them.
They know, they know better.
Yeah, they know it. So it's
my parents, they are approaching their 40th anniversary in September.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, so it's when you look back at it, you're like, wow, because I only remember them when I saw them, because I don't really know them before I was born.
What they were like when they were kids,
Right. So there was a time period where I really don't know. It wasn't until recently my mom just told me now, maybe about a couple months ago, how they first met. And we never really had that type of like dialogue, when maybe it's just cultural, Randy, like we just didn't have that. My parents weren't the type of parents that would tell us like how they met and how they did things.
They've always just been your parents.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't talk, like that. But
it seems like back in the day, Chase, and let me know if this is right, Cook, that things just happen faster. Like you said, you met Pop, and within a week, you guys are going steady and all that.
Yeah.
Was that typical, or was it dating around?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
No, it wasn't because all the girls I knew were, had this boyfriend and that boyfriend. I was I guess one of the more unusual ones that I met somebody and I went with them for the rest of my life.
Well, look,
my mom too.
Had you had any other boyfriends before Pop?
What?
Had you had any other boyfriends before Pop? No, just the one. The whole wow.
That was it.
My mom too. Yeah, my mom too.
Oh, he was happy. He was kidding.
My mom too. My mom. She met my dad when she was like 16 in a cafe, and that's the only man that she ever been with. Yeah. So it was interesting. It's just interesting. I just like loving hearing stories like that.
Yeah. Actually, here's a great question, Cook, and I've never asked you this. What about Pop? Like, what's something that he did that would annoy you? Like, oh, here he goes again.
Something that he would annoy me.
I mean, you're married for almost 70 years now, so there must be something.
I think I was more exasperating to him than he was.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
How did he put up with me?
Were you a tough cookie? Were you
no pun intended.
We couldn't work like when you had to paint the house or something.
Yeah.
He was all right. Well, we'll paint the wall, and I say no. First, you got to spackle this, and you got to check that. And he was more get to the job and do it.
Okay.
And I was, you got to do it the way it tells you to do it.
Okay. So you were the boss.
And sometimes I could be exasperating because I was, be more insistent on doing it that way or whatever it was. But no, not really. No, he was very understanding, very patient. So. We didn't have that. That's what I said. I was probably more of a pain in the neck than he was.
Now, as far as parenting goes, who was the tough one? Who was the fun loving one?
They'll all tell you. He was the good boss. I was the bad boss.
Okay. Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
I'd go out in the evening to, a meeting or something, and he'd be home with the girls. They say, well, can we go out? He says, yeah, well, when are you supposed to come back? He says, oh, well, Mom, when did your mother say you have to come back?
Oh, and they pull a fast one on him.
Pull a fast one.
Yeah, 9:00. All right, fine.
So I wouldn't say when they had to be back. I figured he's there.
He'll take it.
I never there's one thing in my life that I wish like I was able to do, and as I'm getting older, you start looking at the past and what you could have done, what you should have did. And one of the things I wish I could have done was like I never met any of my grandfathers at all.
Either.
That was primarily just based on logistics, you know, I think.
Over in Africa, Chase's family's from East
Oh,
Africa.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Mhm.
Yeah, so me and my family, we immigrated here in the 80s, and we left all our family in Africa.
Oh, my.
So I never got to meet any of my grandfathers at all. And I met one of my grandmothers. There was one grandmother, and she recently passed as well. She recently passed not too long ago. But there were certain things I wish I could have met them, and I could have like asked them questions, you know. So
Yes.
but everything was like kind of just filtered through my grandmother, you know. I could see like where everything stemmed from as far as where we got our mannerisms and how we laughed. And you know, once I met my grandma, I was like, oh, we got it from her. You know, like my mom is just a byproduct of my grandmother, you know. There was a language barrier for sure, because you know, she didn't speak English and I didn't speak English either. And even when like so, but I wish there were times where I could have been like, just went over there and like seen them, you know. So that's why like going forward, I like to,
Yes.
you know, want to start connecting with like family members, and so I can get like where your legacy comes from, or where, not so much legacy, but where you come from, you know, where these stories come from, you know.
What's that process like? Because I mean, I know you've raised 3 daughters, including my mother. You did it in the 50s and the 60s, and you stayed at home. And I know you went back to work. So didn't you end up finishing college too?
Well, I got my associate's degree. Once I went to work,
Okay.
I realized that, you know, if I tried to advance anymore, I wasn't going to get very, very far, because at that point they were starting, college educations meant a lot as far as a job is concerned. And so they were willing to pay as long as I got, you know, what was it, C average? They would pay for my
the company you worked for.
education. So I did that, and that was, I enjoyed that part of it. I just got to my associates and stopped, because it was taking, now the girls were gone, and it was taking a lot of time from Pop, because, you know, I had to do schoolwork and, you know, all that stuff. And I said, no, I didn't want to do that. So.
Were you a good student when you were in high school and all that? Because I know college didn't seem like a popular option in the 40s. It didn't seem like many. Now it's like everyone goes, but back then, no one went.
No. And grammar school, I was good, but I pulled out my report cards.
Oh, you thought you were better.
I was not good. I got this attitude. Oh, I'm in high school now. I'm fine. No, okay.
I do want to ask you something. What would you say? How was how was Randy as a grandchild?
That's a great question.
How was Randy as a grandchild, and more so, where did Randy, do you think, got his? How did Randy become Randy? Where did Randy become Randy at some point? You know, do you see? Yeah.
Well, you weren't a weird kid. I mean, you fit in with everybody else. You had what would you call them?
Eccentricities.
Like tying his shoelaces,
yeah.
Socks being a certain height, his pants had to be all the way up to his chest. And his grandfather, Pop, was the only one that could help him with that.
Because I like the way he did it.
Yes. I'd say to him, well, what do you do when you tie his shoelaces that he thinks it's right?
I don't know.
He said nothing more than I tie any other shoelace, except I put my finger under here and tell him this is the way it goes. And you trusted him enough to believe him.
Yeah. And where did you say Randy, like when Randy was growing up? Well, Queens. Yeah, you always lived in Queens, right, Randy? You never lived anywhere else, right? Okay, so yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's always interesting.
I remember, Chase, when I was little, we would go every Thursday to my father's parents' house. And then every Sunday, we'd go up to Cookie and Pop's house. And they lived in Ossining, which is 45 minutes outside of the city, up in Westchester County. But we thought it was the countryside. So we were going to upstate New York, you know, because of that grass. And I'm sure if I saw the old yard that you had now, it's probably this big. But in my eyes, it was the size of the entire forest. And we'd go up there every Sunday and cook dinner, and Pop would always have some game for us. I know he built a basketball court in the basement. Remember, he made some clubs for us when we were young to go golfing. We go out to the park. You'd always build.
And watch movies.
Oh yeah, watch movies.
Yeah.
We'd watch movies, and I'd sit in between him and the armrest eating pretzels.
Yeah, he was Pop's sleeping partner.
I took a lot of naps then, just like I do now, Chase.
But ironically enough, Randy still does that today. Randy sleeps very well.
I don't know if I ever told you this story. Cookie knows this, but so my grandfather had he had one of those old VCRs with the big buttons on it, and the remote broke. So he's like, "Oh, instead of getting a new remote or a new VCR, he got some molding, some like crown molding from the floor, duct taped them together, and put like a long 6-foot stick that he'd keep on the top of the couch, and he'd use that to push the buttons on the VCR, so we wouldn't have to buy a new remote."
Yeah, who's Elon Musk? Let's
Pop was inventing things. He was an inventor before his time.
What would you say to? I want to ask you something, Cookie. You know, as I'm not married, which is I know you're probably surprised based on the shirt.
Good-looking guy like you. How did that happen? Oh, by the way, do you smoke?
I don't smoke cigarettes. No.
No.
He quit.
That's your problem.
Oh yeah, smoking.
You could have asked some girl for a match.
Well, I used to, Cookie. I used to, and then I got back into my health.
Yeah, she got Pop to stop finally.
Yeah. I mean, what do you say? What kind of advice you would give some single men in their life in their 40s? You know, what is there? Do I still wait, or is can I? So am I looking?
You're asking a person who went with the person that she married, the only person that she married. How to get somebody? I don't know.
Well, Cookie, honestly, I'm just really asking if you have any friends. Do you have any friends?
Well, I guess Chase, the better question is, since you were in a 60-some-odd year marriage, what is your advice on maintaining a good, healthy, long-term relationship? Because you did it. I mean, none of us have done it. No one in this house has 60 years.
Loving, concerned, and caring about the person you love more than your own well-being. And that's the only thing I can tell you. You care. Each person cares more about the one that they're with than yourself. And that's what Pop and I had. I mean, we were truly blessed. I knew him for 72 years and was married to him for almost 68 years. So.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you guys it was 4 years before you got married.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know he got married right before he went off to
military.
To the military, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he used to, he used to drive 7 hours then to come see you on the weekends, right?
No. 12, 13 hours.
Oh, wow.
Because they only had 301. They didn't have 95 then. He had to go through Baltimore, and it was every weekend. Once he got out of boot camp, every weekend he was home. Wow. Nobody knew that he was in the military because he always came home.
Jeez. He was driving from North Carolina back to New York.
Well, I just think that, back then you did what you had to do to be with the person you want to be with.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was. I feel like, and there weren't that many options back then in terms of traveling, in terms of
That's right.
Yeah, so I think now,
like you do now, or
it was a fancy thing to fly back then, wasn't it? Because I remember Pop telling me when he was a kid, he remembered they still had horse-drawn carriages with fruit, and the horses would die. I was like, "What? They had cars, but there was horses too." I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. It was a big event. I remember one time somebody had their fruit stand with the horse cart, and the horse died, and everybody in the neighborhood came running to see the dead horse.
That was entertainment in the 40s. A dead horse.
Oh man.
Sad.
Now, what's with the music? I'm sure the music, was
his whole life revolved around
Pops did.
Yeah.
Did you take you out a lot? Did you guys go to shows and everything like that?
Oh, yeah. There was a big deal to go to this Christmas and Easter to go into the city. And then they had stage shows along with the movies. So you go to Radio City Music Hall and you see some kind of stage show. Place like the Roxy, where Frank Sinatra or any of those people started, you'd see a big movie that was coming out, and then you see a show. So I saw a lot of like Benny Goodman, Vaughn Monroe. I don't even know if you know these people. And I'd see them in person on stage. But that was Pop's music. And the other thing he liked was country.
And and TV didn't come out till the 50s, really, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
that
it was you guys were doing a lot when you were younger kids. You go out to the shows.
Yeah.
Okay.
We go to the movies. That was a date, going to the movies. And Pop said I was a cheap date. He ate a lot of candy. And I had been properly brought up that you don't spend a fellow's money.
Oh, really?
No.
That's
You know?
nice. Women today don't hear that. I'll tell you right now.
And I go,
Randy, I'm about to ask Cookie if she has any friends that she could be up with. I need women like you.
Yeah. Nice young man like yourself, dressed well.
I'm gonna start coming down to Virginia, wherever you guys are right now.
Oh, yeah. That's actually an interesting question, Cook. I mean, because 90 years, it's 50 more years than I've been around. And I think what's going to be in 50 years. So over the last 90, what's the craziest thing you've seen invented, or like the craziest change in society that you're like, wow, I can't believe this is where we are with this.
I think today, with all the technology you have, look at this.
Yeah.
With this pandemic being on, I would have been lost without being able to FaceTime.
Oh, yeah.
At least I could see. I mean, I could talk on the phone. We did a lot of telephone calling. My parents lived in Florida. I was in New York. But it's being able to see somebody on a screen and talk to them. And, with Pop gone, I don't know what I would have done, because it would have really been very lonely.
Very lonely. Yeah. And that's actually one thing I remember when he was here. He wasn't a big fan of all the computers. He thought it was, he was. I don't know that he didn't. I don't know that he didn't like them. He just didn't understand. So they're not for me. I don't care.
Right,
it's not for me.
That's right.
But when we got him the iPad and showed him how you FaceTime, he's like, "Oh, I can see Nance and the kids."
Yeah.
He liked that.
He liked that.
Yeah. He liked that.
He liked that. That was seeing family and that kind of thing.
Now, was he always big on family too, or was that something you guys both just talked about when you got together?
Because
it seemed like he liked having kids around.
Yeah, he did, and we had. It's so funny because I come from my mother is a. Let me get this straight. My grandmother had 6 children. She had 3 girls and a boy, and a girl. And then Nanny had 3 girls and then a boy.
Yeah.
And I had 3 girls, and I said to Pop, well, should we have another one? Well, maybe have a boy. He says, we don't know if we'd have a boy, and I'm happy with my 3 girls. He says, and we had decided that we'd have 3 children, and that's enough.
Oh, so you guys had decided.
So we had decided, yeah. So
he didn't want to shoot for the sun.
Yeah, I guess he.
Did you want one? Did you want a little boy?
It would have been nice.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have been named Thomas, and.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have the name all picked out already, but.
I like how Cookie said it would have been nice, like it's an option for AC in a car. That would have been nice,
Yeah, that's something.
But your mother always said I wasn't a boy mother.
You don't think so? I mean, you go with me and Ryan.
She said that, but I don't know
Yeah.
whether she knew that. The Pop would have been there. What did you think he was going to be?
Yeah. So who was the most difficult of the 3 daughters? My mom, Nancy, and Sally, or Aunt Kathy?
They were each very different. Your mother, she was a tomboy, so she was always kind of getting into little scrapes here and there, and
Okay.
and Sally was always saving to write me notes. Don't be mean to her. Although she was always picking on Sally.
And Kathy was quiet?
Yeah, she loved books, so she'd sit in the corner, read a book, and Sally would come up saying, Nancy's bothering me. She says, ignore her.
Yeah, my mom was a real tease, apparently. She would pick on her siblings.
She still is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you should have seen them yesterday, Chase. My mom was drowning my Aunt Kathy in the pool. She's scared of the pool already. She's giving her all the time in the pool.
Listen, I get really just I like yourself, Cookie. Family for me is like very important, and but I never got to really experience the collective unit of a family, where we never really had like family outings or family. I never grew up with cousins. I didn't know cousins.
You're also much older than your siblings, right, Chase? You're far older than them, right?
I'm the oldest.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm the oldest. My youngest brother is 23, and I'm 40.
There's 15 years in between them. So.
Yeah, and I have a sister and 3 brothers. So, but I don't really remember growing up with cousins. I didn't have cousins. They were in Africa, you know, they're like, so we didn't really have like, there was no like, hey, we're going to go to my aunt's, you know, whatever to play with, you know, so that's why I always get like, not so much jealous, but I kind of envy people who always have the unity of family and make time to like do things together. I don't know if you know, I don't know, but I just like that, you know, so that's why I always gravitated towards like families who had these type of activities and stuff. Listen, I almost got on a plane yesterday just to come to Virginia unexpectedly to hang with you guys. I was just going to show up. But yeah,
keeps you on straight.
But we always had things going on at our house from the moment we bought our first home. We had company on Sunday, and Pop worked only half a day on Sunday, so he was there the rest of the day. So we'd have dinner. I'd always make dinner for everybody who came, his parents, my parents, and then of course, you know, brothers and sisters and their children.
Did your families get along?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, was that important back then? To have your, otherwise, I mean.
Yeah. Well, we both came from families that, you know, were good families in themselves. So it was good. I was always with aunts and uncles, and you know, Pop was always with, you know, his cousins. And
did you get along with your in-laws? I know it's always it could be challenging with.
Yeah, well, my father-in-law, he was a sweetheart.
Pop Pfeiffer, or Pop Mead.
Pop Mead. He was just, you know, quiet, loving man who dearly loved Nanny Mead, but she could be a problem because her life revolved around her 5 children. They were her kids. Okay. I always laughed about that because I said, whatever happened to Pop? My kids, my kids, my kids. I mean, and now that brings up an interesting point, because I think that was the only sticking point between me and Pop was that, like when we were going to move to Mayapack, I said, well, we'll tell your mother, you know, we used to visit on Friday nights. And I said, well, we'll tell your mother Friday. And he said, no, I have to do it in my own way. He had his own special way to tell her, because otherwise she'd be hysterical and crying.
Oh, because he's moving away?
Yes.
Even though it's only a half an hour out to Mayapack?
And that was the other thing, in that why he was the way he was about telling me how he felt. He didn't feel well, while letting me know when something was wrong, you know, with cutting his finger. Because I mean, if something happened to her, they didn't feel well, she'd cry for days.
Get hysterical.
Yeah, she'd cry for days and get hysterical. And, you know, so that got to be a problem sometimes, because I would get upset.
They wouldn't tell you, his knees bother him or whatever, whatever ailment he's got.
It all related back to, you know, how his mother was.
Not to disappoint mom.
Yeah.
And did Nanny like Pop? Did your mother?
Oh, my mother adored him.
Really?
She thought he was wonderful. And
really?
She always says, she told me after we got married, she says, you take good care of that man. She says, you don't know how lucky you are.
Oh. That's usually the mother-in-law hates the guy. No, at least according to TV shows, you know, not the real world. Who knows?
Yeah, no, from the time she met him, she liked, well, both my parents.
What was it about him, you think, that they liked, like that your parents liked Pop so much?
Well, Pop was always very caring, you know, like always considerate of my mother, polite, you know, and these are things that, you know, parents like. They could talk to each other, you know, so, yeah, because my father, Pop was always spur of the moment. You know how he was. Do this, do that, the other thing. My father was very regimented. He came home, dinner had to be ready at 5:00. That's when he came in. Sunday, we ate dinner between 12 and 12:30. Nobody in the world ate dinner.
Dinner at 12:30? Was he in bed by 2? What?
So
what time did you have breakfast the night before?
Almost. But we moved in with them for a couple of months till our house was ready in Mayapack. Yeah. My mother was so unhappy when we left, because Pop would go. We'd go to my father. She'd say to my father, let's go for a ride. That was a big thing back in the day.
Just going for a drive?
In the 70s, yeah. And the 80s. We'll go for a ride. My father go, where? She said, I know, just a ride.
All right.
Yes. So Papa say, let's go for a ride. We'll go for an ice cream. Oh, yeah. Let's go to the movies. And my father go, all right, what time does the movie start? He said, no, I can't, because then I got to get up in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Papa said, let's go to the movies.
All right. That's how Randy brides me to get out of his house. He just like, let's go
right.
for ice cream.
We gotta go for a ride.
Sometimes I stay too much in Randy's place. He's like, yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go. I'll buy you food. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Well, she was a little unhappy when we left because she had to go back to her old way.
To the routine. So actually, I actually wanted to ask you this: what advice would you give your 25-year-old self or 20-year-old self?
Well, 20-year-old self.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, when I was 20, I was married. What advice would I give myself? I don't know.
I mean, would you have done anything different?
No.
No?
Why would I do anything different? I was happy.
I guess that's the key to staying young. That's
I was happy. I was in love. I had a husband. I had children.
Well, how about what advice would you give a 20-year-old today? Because I mean, obviously the future. You don't know what the future holds, but you know what you've learned throughout your life. What would you tell them that was good advice for you that you would want to tell them? What would you tell Kaylee to make sure that she lives a good life?
Okay. Well, like now she's getting her education. Don't rush into anything. I mean, when I hear people getting married at 20 years old now, I go, oh my gosh, that's so young. Because there's I never felt that way, that I missed something. Neither did Pop.
Yeah.
Because people, I guess at that time, were getting married. The only difference I had when I was younger was I didn't have children right away. All my friends did. And those that had their husbands going into the military like Pop had their children right away. I would have never wanted a child while Pop was away. But I don't know, get your education, be fair and kind to other people, try to be understanding of their situations and be a good person.
Pretty simple, right? Yeah.
See, it seems so basic, but I feel like it's something that people don't really hear anymore. They care about others. They care about other people.
Yeah.
So
education. Education, guys.
Education, yeah. And I do agree with starting later. I mean, I think that the way the world works now, you're better off getting yourself into a self-sufficient state before you start doing that. If you have kids at 19, 20, now you're still in school. There's no way you're going to be able to finish and do all that.
No, and that's the one thing I regret with Pop, that we didn't think far enough ahead to let him get an education. He would have been a terrific, engineer or whatever, and whatever he had done. And that's the only thing. I think that's the only regret I personally have. I don't know how Pop felt.
I was going to say that because I feel like Pop enjoyed being a mechanic.
Oh, he did. He loved that. Yeah. Even later, like even just recently in Florida, he had to do something on the car. He says, "Boy, I still love doing that." Because now it was getting more difficult. He couldn't move around the way he wanted to. So I still love doing that. So
I guess that's a key to life, to try to find something you love to do. Because he worked 2 jobs, but he never seemed unhappy to me as a kid. I mean, I remember he'd come back, he would have dinner on Sunday night, and he'd go back to work.
Right.
After Sunday dinner. And he never complained about it. I never heard him complain about it. He wasn't a complainer, was he, huh?
No.
No,
he wasn't. At least not to me.
Somebody else. The guys at work might got an earful.
Well, happy wife, happy life. You don't want you can't come home with with that type of stuff. Would you like? I don't know. Me and Randy always talk about marriage and the idea of marriage, especially now. And like you said, I think it's just the time has changed a lot. I think, in my opinion, even the modern woman has changed, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, probably women have changed a lot.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing a lot of
outcome of the feminist movement. Women having their own jobs and careers and lives.
I think that way it must. Once again, it kind of goes back. Like I feel sorry, like your mother. She had to go to work.
Yeah.
And then, she's worrying about her children. There's so many, things that are interfering. Like I said, I had the, how do I want to put it? But the
opportunity, I guess.
Opportunity to stay home with my children, which is what I wanted, which made me happy. Your mother didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
maybe she wouldn't have, even if she could have, but that's a different thing. Today women can kind of do whatever they want to do, thing. Now, does that make them happier? I don't know.
Yeah,
I always felt I was doing what I wanted to do, and Pop was doing what he wanted to do, and we were doing it together.
Yeah. So it worked out.
But I think today you should get your education, get some more life experience, probably what I've observed over time. Not that I felt that I needed that at some point, but I think today they do.
Yeah. And how would you say, especially now, meeting people has changed obviously too, Randy? Like,
the way you meet someone.
The way we meet people now has changed, especially when you were growing up. Now it's more of like, it's a digital way of meeting people.
I don't know that.
Yeah, the dating apps.
I feel like there's something lost in that. I mean, because now you meet people online like this.
I know.
And, I think there was something sweet about walking by and saying, do you have a match? I mean, it was, at least you knew who you were talking to. I don't know. It seems a little more personal.
Although and Sally, it worked out for her.
Yeah.
And she had a friend that it worked out for, but I don't. For myself, I don't know if I'd like.
If you did, that'd be your thing. But, online dating.
Yeah,
we'll make you a profile.
But see, I'm coming from a different time, so who's to say which one is better or not?
Yeah, that's true.
Church socials, there's no more, those kind of things that you go to.
Yeah, are there any institutions that are sort of fallen by the wayside that you wish it still? Because I know you're a big part of the church and still, and that. But how do you feel about the way society is now versus 50 years ago, when it was, because it seemed a little more buttoned up? I think things are moving a lot faster now.
Yeah, that's true, and you have all this technology, and that kind of scares me, a lot of it. And it's like,
but you're on Facebook. You're on Facebook.
Yeah, but other things. There's, it's like your life. Everybody knows your life. There's no privacy. Anybody can find anything out. There's no. I don't know if I like that so
much. I'm big on privacy. I'm very big on.
Well, we talk about Chase and I talk about it all the time.
I am huge on privacy. I'm huge on keeping things in house that has to deal with family and friendships and things like that. I'm just big on that. I just, maybe that's how I was growing up. My parents would always say, don't, respect people when you go to their house. Don't go in the fridge. Only if it's Randy's house, I'll go in the fridge. I go in. But, things of that sort. And I think they gave me a good foundation to kind of just, respect people's privacy. And now we can just look up Randy and that's it. Like, or we can look up me and it's,
everything you've ever done, every place you've ever lived is on the addresses on the internet. It's really creepy.
Yeah. So, even right now, my mom to this day, she's like, when are you going to get married? When are you getting married? I'm like, Mom, you haven't even asked me if I even like women. We haven't even had that conversation yet. It's like so all she wants to do is just get married, and that's the only thing.
Some grandkids.
Well, that hasn't changed over time. I'm still want that.
They still want grandkids.
But I'm glad to hear what you said about the privacy, because that's the thing that scares me now. Nothing seems to be private anymore. That's your own. That it's out there that anybody can grab, and I don't like that.
What do you think are the bigger problems in society now? Because I feel like everyone thinks that we're in the most turbulent times ever right now. Mm-hmm. But you lived through the 60s. I mean, and that's got to be far. I mean, the president and his brother got assassinated, Martin Luther King.
That's true.
Oh yeah, major.
So I feel like history repeats itself, and everyone has a short-term memory. We forget that we've had tough times before.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. We forget what's like like you mentioned the 60s. Well, your mother's cousins, Walter and Marlene and all that, they were in Woodstock and they were in all that. I don't know, it's because I was in the middle of bringing up a family that I didn't feel in the midst of that somehow.
But you certainly remember Martin Luther King and Kennedy.
That kind of thing, yes. But it was like that was the time when the generational things started happening. The birth pills came in and birth control pills. And
were you supportive of civil rights? I assume.
Oh, yeah.
It seems.
Definitely. No, I feel definitely.
No, it's a great question because you never know. I mean, but back then people didn't like, there was, I'm sure your parents were like, oh, the civil rights,
Let me tell you this. When I first went to work, I was 17 years old.
Mhm.
I got a job. I was a civil service worker. There were a limited number of white people. I worked with Black people and Jewish people because those were the two people that there was discrimination against. The best jobs they could get was with civil service. I knew Jewish people through my father, but Black people who were colored people at that time, they were not called Black. They were, it was interesting for me to learn about them because they were just like me. They had families.
Who would have thought?
They didn't like the girl that worked with me. She was from Africa, but she was married to a man who was from, what country was it? Nigeria or something. And they didn't like her because she was from Africa. And I go, what? But they're the same color. I didn't understand that. And that girl didn't want to go to that girl's party because she came from some other tribe. I thought, I don't understand that.
Yeah, no, I don't even understand it.
A great deal about not Black people, about people. Everybody's human and we all have feelings and we should all respect each other. And that's why I think the civil rights thing is very important. And I'm so sad about what's going on today. I feel like we're going backwards.
Yeah, I agree with that. But are you hopeful for the future? Do you think we'll figure it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the future will.
Because you always seem like a pretty positive person.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, how do you stay so positive? What keeps you so upbeat?
I pray to God.
Yeah. I mean, that's I was gonna say, where did Randy didn't get the hopefulness?
I know. Well, I'm cynical. I don't know why. I think I'm cynical because it's more funny. It's
right. You're not literally.
A guy falls down. That's funny. It's not. A guy wins the lotto. It's not funny. It's great, but it's not funny.
Right.
You don't want to see that trip or get a pie in his face. That's funny.
Right. Yeah.
And I always go for funny, Chase. You know me. So.
Yeah. You're good. Yeah.
And the thing is, I see that so many of the young people now are involved, and that's a good thing because you are the ones that can help change things, and may need more direction. I think some of it isn't directed properly. But, but we're all people, and we all have to get along. And I can never understand why people would hurt other people. I just could never understand that.
I agree with you on that. That's one thing that you, Pop, Mom, everyone else, violence is never the answer. I don't ever mean to get hurting somebody's being the right thing to do. Yeah. But
for the people that come from an environment of violence, though, too, to understand that I come from that, so that's all I know is that.
So some background for Chase. So Chase's family's from Eritrea, which had a civil war with Somalia in the 90s.
Oh my
God.
Ethiopia.
Sorry. Eritrea had a civil war with Ethiopia in the 90s and came over as a refugee.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it just was constant, of being and coming from that, and also being just seeing the aftermath of what civil war has done to generations of families, and the fear and it really
it's trust, right?
Yeah.
Trust.
How do you trust your neighbor again?
Yeah.
10 years ago they were shooting at you.
It's one. Yeah. So
you forget how good we have it here. Relative, I mean, not perfect, but it's compared to other places.
Yes.
It's
I have a little thing in my act where I talk about it. It's just when there was talks about when this whole stuff was kind of uprising with what's going on now socially with people and stuff. And when there was a sector of people that were talking about, we're leaning into civil war. I think we talked about it, Randy, about that. I took a step back and I would say, no, not really. It shouldn't. It should never get to that place here.
Yeah.
And primarily because you don't even understand the aftermath of a civil war. It's the most worst thing that could ever happen to people, So I'm just like, guys, it should never get here. My family came here for freedom. So we knew yeah. So let's take a step back and really kind of break this down and not get ahead of ourselves, but hey, we need to pay attention to it and we need to, adjust to it. But, I don't think this country, I think there's a lot of people in this country I don't think really understand, have appreciation for it, for what it really is. Yeah. And, I can just talk where I'm from. There's no internet. You can't have internet.
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't.
As simple as that. It's like there's no freedom of press. There's no freedom of there's nothing of that.
Right.
You can't be even get you can't even be this. So I'm just like, what are we talking about? Yeah. What are we talking about? Honestly, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I don't even know what I just said, but I was on my
Sounded good. So what?
I ramble, Cookie. So that's what I do. I ramble. So
Chase is the best. Yeah, he has the flavor to this. Otherwise, it would sound like me complaining all day. I get up on my soapbox and tell you how the world should be. But so what keeps you excited every day to keep going and enjoy your life? What gets you out of bed every morning still?
The alarm clock.
Hey, the snooze button.
You seem excited. I mean, you still seem full of life. You don't seem like I'm going to drag you out to go do something.
How early do you wake up, Cookie? That's what I want to know. How early?
5:30.
Oh, we ain't doing that over here.
5:30. Try to go, doze off maybe a little bit longer, but I get up at 5:30. And from there, I usually go for a walk before 7 because it gets hot in Florida. So I go for a walk for about 30 to 40 minutes, and I can't get back into the fitness center yet because it's not open.
It's a COVID, yeah.
Yeah, and I do that since Pop has passed away. The world has changed a lot with
with a
virus,
pandemic. I know. He would have been miserable with this stupid thing.
Oh my gosh,
because they couldn't go to the golf course.
And then I think there was a poem that was put on Facebook by someone that said, I'm gone, but don't change your life. Keep doing what you were doing. Stay with your family. And that's what probably keeps me going is, I have my family. I just miss doing the things I did before. You just can't, I was an estate sailor. I went to garage sales. I went to thrift stores. I as I say, bopped around, and my whole morning would be taken up with doing all this, doing my walks, doing all that, cleaning the house, gardening, whatever.
Well, my favorite, Chase, listen to this. I don't know if you remember the answer to this question, but I remember we asked Cookie, I think it was for her 85th birthday, what's something that she can't do anymore that she really misses? And do you remember your response, Cook?
Yeah, I can't jump.
She can't jump. She wants to jump.
I went to jump and I couldn't jump. I don't know, just stopped.
Well, not to burst your
That's how you know you have a life well lived. That the only thing you want to do that you can't do anymore is jump.
Right.
Because everything else is fun. I just wish I could jump.
Yeah. Well, in my history of jumping, usually it's a hard fall. So
it's not getting off the ground. It's a problem. It's getting back onto it.
Getting back in peace. So mine won't be jumping, but maybe I'll lose a little more weight. Maybe I'll be able to
get there.
Yeah.
So we did it, Cook. We're in an hour. We've made it.
We were on here for a whole hour.
We did a whole hour.
I didn't think we were going to be here.
That's how we do it.
Oh my!
Is there any words of advice you want to tell the listeners?
Just be good to each other, respect each other, care about everybody else.
Very thoughtful.
Think more of others than yourself all the time. Don't be selfish.
I could definitely see a little bit now where Randy gets a lot of some of his sensibilities from, and his personality from, and I think it's him being grown up with very strong women in his life, and
it made all the difference.
Yeah. So I think that's awesome. I it's been an honor to meet you, and I'm glad that you did it. Thank you very much.
Jason.
Thank you so much.
Hope you meet somebody soon.
Oh yeah, he'll meet plenty of somebodies. This guy. Thank you so much for doing this, Cook. Thank you so much. Love you very much. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, listeners. We'll be back next week, or I guess we'll do 2 episodes this week. We'll release 2. So we'll be back next week. We have double episodes this week, but that's it for this one, guys. We love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks again, Cook. Love you.
Thank you.
All right, Chase. Take care. Peace.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Bye.